One of the most glaring mysteries of Security Breach is that Bonnie and Foxy are missing. Characters that have been a part of the franchise since 2014 are suddenly replaced by Roxy and Monty, two random new characters. In the past, I had focused on trying to solve why Bonnie and Foxy are missing and where they've gone, and I'm still fairly confident in those theories. But something I didn't address is the grander picture here. What is happening to the animatronics of the Security Breach Pizzaplex? Sure, Bonnie and Foxy are missing, but why are they still gone? If Bonnie was destroyed by Monty or something, why wasn't he just replaced with a new Bonnie? What was the goal here? Was it going to get worse? Well, genuinely, I think so. Because actually, I think one of the joke endings of Security Breach might be more accurate than we've been being led to believe. Slices, put on your aprons, and let's bake ourselves a theory. So what do I mean when I say they're missing? Like I mentioned in the intro, the main lineup of Security Breach is Glamrock Freddy, Glamrock Chica, Montgomery Gator, and Roxanne Wolf. No Glamrock Bonnie, and no Glamrock Foxy. When the game first came out, this turned a lot of heads, and the game itself points out Bonnie's absence quite frequently. I mean, there's the whole Bonnie bowling section, but there's duffel bags from staff members asking what to say and what the official line is for what happened to Bonnie. There's even the fact that if you bring Freddy to the stage Bonnie would have performed at, he mourns the loss of his boyfriend.
I do not come up here anymore. I miss him.
But that is kind of it. And we get no information on Foxy. He's never even mentioned. He, as Foxy, is around. He's a giant statue in Kids Cove. There's posters featuring him, standees featuring him, but no Glamrock Foxy anywhere to be found. Not even in that merchandise. It's just Foxy, at least until Ruin. In Ruin, we actually do get the vestiges of these characters. Through an incredibly difficult Easter egg, we're able to find Bonnie's shattered body in the back of Bonnie Bowling, along with green markings around his giant chest cavity. And we do get to learn more about a possible Foxy at the Pizzaplex, but it's not necessarily about his disappearance. We see an unfinished Foxy log flume area, and more Foxy iconography around it. Even in Help Wanted 2, we get to play through a finalized version of this attraction, but still, no implications that Foxy was ever at the Pizzaplex. If anything, seems more likely that Foxy was going to be brought in very soon. But what makes me say that? I've made a couple videos on this topic before, but when introducing new concepts or products to a business, companies will often test the waters. It's a way to see if there's any consumer interest before committing money to the project. They want to make sure it doesn't immediately blow up in their face. For example, in most of my videos, the gameplay I show is actually my gameplay, as a way to market test the idea that, hey, I do stream on twitch.tv/RightToastYT Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday every single week at 9 p.m. EST. And then I upload those gameplay videos and shorts to my second channel, RightToast. Always be plugging. But I've made videos in the past that I think this is what the Pizzaplex is doing with Foxy. Foxy was always sort of an oddball character in the Fazbear routine. He had a separate stage, he was always out of order, he's notoriously a bit dangerous. So it does kind of make sense for them to leave out Foxy in the initial launch, but then still put out Foxy movies and merchandise to see if people do still like the character. And if that's successful, then you can add him later on. To this day, I think it's a very fair interpretation, but there's one issue. The question is still why? Regardless of why Foxy wasn't there to begin with, why are they suddenly trying to add him now? If the Pizzaplex was so confident to open a Freddy's location without Foxy, why are they changing course to add him after the fact? Well, to better explain it, let's look at our other disappearance here, Bonnie. Now this is a disappearance we have some more meat to chew on about. Like I mentioned in Security Breach proper, we get several duffel bags mentioning not only staff wondering what to say, but security logs showing that Bonnie was last seen heading into Monty Gator Golf. Then come Ruin, where we're directly shown the corporate reason given for why Bonnie's no longer around. A farcical story about Bonnie retiring from the band and giving his role in the band to Monty. But clearly that's not the full picture, because we get to go to Bonnie's green room in Bonnie Bowling, and in there we see that he seemed to be enjoying his life and there's no signs that he was about to retire, not to mention the fact that he's a robot and they don't do that. And to top it all off, if you find every single wet floor bot and turn them off, which is a crazy thing that still is weird to explain, you find a hidden back room in Bonnie Bowling with the shattered Glamrock Bonnie behind it, all with those green markings around his torn open chest. There's a lot of interpretations on why Bonnie disappeared. A lot of people assume that Montgomery Gator is the one who took him down. After all, he's one of the more violent animatronics, and there are green markings around the chest, and he was last seen entering Monty Gator Golf. So it's a very valid explanation. I've also seen an incredible theory by Bonjonzi that I've talked about on this very channel that implies that Glamrock Bonnie was sort of the Glamrock Freddy before Glamrock Freddy, aka an animatronic that resisted the influence of whatever's going on at the Pizzaplex and was about to find out until he was stopped by those weird green staff bots just outside the underground pizzeria. Then on the chase back up, was finally caught and destroyed in the Roxy garages, which is why this carpet matches a very similar cutout shape in this carpet. But here's the thing, as fun and engaging of a theory as it is to figure out exactly why Bonnie was destroyed, there's something many of us really haven't talked about, and that's why he never came back. Sure, he was demolished in some weird series of events, but why did they just leave him remain demolished? There's literally a warehouse filled with dozens to hundreds of Glamrock endoskeletons ready to be utilized at a moment's notice. It's almost comical how many backup endoskeletons they have at the ready at any given time. Do you really think a company that's wasting this much money to make these many extra endoskeletons doesn't have a couple extra exoskeletons? Surely there's a couple extra casings lying around that could be utilized. So even if this body was destroyed, why didn't they just make a new one? Vanessa herself threatens Freddy in Security Breach, saying she'll slap his casing on a new endoskeleton at a moment's notice, which implies it's not difficult to recreate these animatronics from the ground up. I wouldn't doubt if they streamlined it, just plug the endoskeleton in and say, be a Freddy, and it's a Freddy now. Yet they don't. Keeping the group as Freddy, Chica, Monty, Roxy, and planning to add Foxy is a deliberate and continuous choice. So then, why? What do these characters have in common that would give somebody a reason to make them the frontliners of the Pizzaplex? Well, there is one connection we know of definitively in a post-Secret of the Mimic world. Almost all of them are Murray's Costume Manor original characters. I like the shirt, by the way. Wouldn't you know it? But it's a GamerSupps original. That's right, baby. We're a GamerSupps channel. Code RightHost to get 10% off your entire order over at gamersupps.gg/righthost. Genuinely, I drink this shit every single day. They got caffeine, non-caffeine. They got stuff with magnesium or melatonin to help you sleep. They even got creatine to help you get gains, dude. I'm telling you, it's good stuff. But anyway, one of the most revealing parts about Secret of the Mimic was finding out how many characters that we thought were Fazbear brand characters originated from Murray's Costume Manor. I mean, the moment we enter the facility, we literally see a standing animatronic of an alligator playing an instrument. And even if you're not convinced that this is supposed to be Monty, what about this Springlock suit that looks a lot more like him in the end of the game? Both Roxy and Foxy are directly name dropped in the puppet show play featuring both of them. Not to mention, Roxy has her own shootout minigame, so she's so popular, she had 2 variants. And according to the home tapes we find in Murray's house, Roxy was one of the first characters Fiona designed as a puppet for David. And then we get to Chica, who has an entire section dedicated to telling the player that although Chica's Party World is actually a different restaurant, they commissioned Murray's Costume Manor to make the animatronic, which means Foxy, Roxy, Monty, and Chica were all animatronics originally designed by Fiona Murray. And in a world that we know a large part of M1/F10N4, Fiona in Lead Speech, was based off of Fiona Murray's personality, the idea that that very same mimic is controlling the Pizzaplex and now is slowly replacing all of the main characters with characters that are its creations makes perfect sense. But I hear you, sure, this can all line up, but what about Freddy? Isn't he too iconic to risk? Could they really replace Freddy Fazbear at the Fazbear Mega Pizzaplex? Well, in some timelines, they do. One of the less talked about endings of Security Breach is the loading bay exit, because ultimately it does feel a little silly. Every other ending has some sort of gravitas about it. I mean, the main exit shows Gregory being captured and killed. Obviously, the Burn Trap and Vanny endings are super important because they tell us more about those antagonists. Already, that's 4 of the endings, all being very important to the lore. Then there's the Fire Escape exit and the loading bay exit. 2 of the weirder exits, to be fair. fair. You actually need to collect a certain amount of collectibles to even unlock them. But when you do, you get heavily rewarded. The fire escape ending is one of the most confusing of all, showing us that the person behind the Vanny mask was Vanessa, and then immediately showing Vanessa herself looking sadly upon her own body. This has spawned dozens of theories and is incredibly important to the lore. And likewise, when you unlock the loading bay exit, you get Gregory running over Mapbot, jump-starting Freddy with a car battery, driving off into the sunset, and this newspaper article saying that fucking glam rock Mr. Hippo takes over in the band. What? It feels very deliberately silly, which is weird because all of these endings are very serious and very filled with lore, except for the van ending. Or is it? Maybe this news article, this seeming joke, is meant to be the lore we're walking away with, because wouldn't you know it, but the moment Freddy is unavailable, the replacement they use is yet again another Murray's Costume Manor original. Remember that Monty that I showed you? Who's directly next to him but Mr. Hippo? Double that down with the fact that Mystic Hippo, a branch off of this character, shows up in Help Wanted 2 and again in Secret of the Mimic. This ending is telling us that if Freddy, for whatever reason, ever goes out of commission or disappears, it would be replaced by yet another character designed by Fiona Murray. So what is the implication here? I wouldn't make this whole video just to say that Fiona likes her own characters and wants them to be part of the band. What does the band slowly being replaced with characters designed by Fiona Murray actually mean? I think this is telling us that the Pizzaplex is already fully under the control of M1 or F10 and 4. Think about it. Every time one of the animatronics gets destroyed or goes away, it's replaced by a character designed by Fiona, the woman that F10 and 4 was based to copy. They could have brought in any other character for these replacements, at least more relevant ones. They could have brought back Balloon Boy. There's plenty of Circus Baby merchandise. It could have been Circus Baby or Ballora, who in the novels do occasionally show up. Ballora has her own weird fitness attraction in the books, which is, by the way, I think one of the scariest books for me. One of my biggest horrors is cave diving, and that scratches that itch in a way that makes me very uncomfortable to read it. But instead of any of these characters that have branding and merchandise all ready to go, whoever chose them chose arguably the most obscure characters they possibly could have. Characters that, as far as we know, have not had any promotion or relevance for half a century. Why did they pick them? The only logical answer I can figure is that Fiona was the one who picked them, which implies Fiona has control over what they're picking. So is M1 or Fiona Glitchtrap? After all, Glitchtrap seems like a mimic variant, and Glitchtrap does seem to have his greedy little paws all over this facility, but I think it's easier to make the case that Glitchtrap seems to be coded as if it's trying to still infiltrate the Pizzaplex, not already fully controls it. And I think Fiona fully controls the security breach Pizzaplex. Frankly, I think this is what the puppet imagery we keep seeing was meant to convey. Not that Charlotte's still around, rather to show us F10 and 4's influence. In Secret of the Mimic, who is the first major antagonist and the character in basically all of the marketing? Jackie. I mean, for God's sakes, she's fucking Backy. To be clear, M2 is the one wearing Jackie during the game. But yet again, for the umpteenth time, Jackie is a character designed by Fiona Murray. A character who, when damaged during the chase sequence, begins to look a lot like Nightmarion. Something pointed out by several other theorists. Similarly pointed out by other theorists is that her jump scare noise has the Nightmarion FNAF 4 jump scare buried inside of it. And what do we see all over the pizza place? Wires and cables that look a lot like Nightmarion's limbs. Staff bots that on a dime can look like Nightmarion and whose jump scare has that same Nightmarion FNAF 4 layer undercut inside of it. There's Nightmarion plushes all over the facility. F10 and 4's influence, if being shown like this, infiltrates every aspect of the Pizzaplex, but it goes one layer further down. Fellow theorist Johnny the Night Guard noticed something insane recently.
The nightmare sound effect also plays when you get jump scared by nightmare staff bots in Security Breach, which also look like Nightmarion. I also found conduit tubing that looks just like Jackie's arm in the nightmare staff bot section.
Like he said, there's a pit of Nightmarion staff bots and cable tubing that looks just like Jackie's arms. But wouldn't you know it, in this area, there's two of those tubes, both of which stretch out from the pit of Nightmare-owned staff bots. In a way, visually, this is telling us that the entire Pizzaplex is being supported by a massive pit of F10N4's influence, whose arms outstretch to span its width, holding the entire Pizzaplex in her hands. F10N4, or M1, is fully in control of the Pizzaplex. It's Glitchtrap who has to worm his way into the system. Oh, Eepy. I really think this is where all of this is trying to point to us to. Something that we'll probably find out in the next game or so. That F10N4/M1 is the thing controlling the Pizzaplex, and Glitchtrap was trying to worm its way into its systems. But let me know what you think in the comments below. I might be genuinely losing it at this point. In the meantime, if you want to hear what a different robot has to say about the Pizzaplex, you should watch last week's video where I go over Candy Cadet stories and how we might have been wrong about them. In the meantime, if you want your fan art featured on the channel, make sure to share with #ToastArt. A huge thank you to our generous patrons who help support this channel in lieu of fluctuating YouTube ad rates, and a special thank you to our breadwinners of the month, Aiden S., Madison Esmond, Marks, and Sam Pinnell. And until next time, as always, stay toasty, slices.